Hello, encouragers. I'm Rebecca Scott, wife, mother of 4, author, and owner and designer of Rebecca Scott Designs. I'm here to encourage you, to make you feel the I can do this spirit each and every day of our awesome journeys to fulfill those many important roles. I believe we are fully equipped to execute, and I will provide you with as much knowledge and practices and systems as I can to help you understand just what I know you can do. Execute. We got this. Hello, encouragers. On today's podcast, I have a delightful guest with me that I've gotten to know over the last couple of years who has a really unique story in what she's living right now with her children and also her boutique. This is Anna Weinstein from Parker, South Dakota. And I have gotten to know Anna through boutique life. She hosted my products, Rebecca Scott Designs, in her shop. So I got to know her with trunk shows and thought, oh my gosh, this woman is amazing what she's handling and such a unique take on style and marketing and her faith journey as well. And so I thought we've got to have her on the podcast after I found out a couple of, what would I call them, life changes that I thought I started to see on her Instagram account, like, wow, we need to share this so that everyone can understand each journey is so different and that she can offer her wisdom going through it to you guys. So welcome to you, Anna.
Thank you. And thank you for having me, Becca. So appreciate it.
I love that your background for recording today is adorable and you look adorable and no one will see us.
Dang it.
Because we are 3s on the Enneagram. Yeah. We're going to look the part, darn it.
That is so true.
Tell us a little bit so our listeners can understand what is the makeup of your family, because this is a large part in your journey.
Yes. So I jokingly always use the word chaotic. I used to think that was a bad word. I seriously did. But after just talking to one of my spiritual mentors, she's like, no, that is totally you. Just own it. And we have, you guys, 4 kids under 4.5, and it's chaotic,
yeah.
But it's so stinking fun. We love it. And my husband and I have been married for 10 years tomorrow. So we're high school sweethearts.
I love that. And you have to tell us the names of your kids, because I think they're adorable.
Yeah. Yes. So Riker is 4.5. Ford is 3. Violet is coming on 18 months. And Slade is going on 2.5 months.
I think too, when you could tell us their names and their ages, we all like flip quickly to what our children were like at 18 months. So
right.
Violet is emptying every single drawer in the kitchen. And
she is
right?
The busiest.
And then Ford and Riker are getting mischievous because they're farm kids and they're boys. And they're like, what happens when I do X, Y, Z? And then nursing a 3.5-month-old, we know you're surviving on, well, unless they're a really good sleeper, but 4 or 5 hours, you wake up going, I feel refreshed.
Oh my gosh. So true. I finally just started sleeping like 6 full straight hours. And I'm like, what is this life? This is amazing.
I always say, you're a parent when you slept for 4 hours and you wake up and you feel refreshed. You're like, yeah.
You're so good.
Like, you're a parent. Congratulations.
You made it.
So tell us a little bit about the White Poppy, which is your adorable boutique, and how it got started and how it's developing now.
Yes. So I have had the White Poppy boutique for 3 years now in November. And so We're coming up on 3 years. I actually had owned a boutique with a friend of mine for 4 years prior to that. So I had a little bit of experience with that. We mostly did it, honestly, just kind of on a side thing. And we decided I just wanted to take it a little bit further. And so I started my own business and I named it the White Poppy after the white poppy flower, which is be the flower of peace. And I just had a mantra of be the peace. And honestly, it cracks me up to this day, like in the world we're living in right now, like how much that makes sense. Like just be the peace. I say it every day, often. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I started off in my mom's store and I loved it. I loved being in the store, but we kept having little babies and I decided I wanted to be home with them more. Mm-hmm. And so I moved from a brick and mortar store I didn't even have a website at the time, to a website and a brick and mortar store, which maybe was why I got so stressed out. The website was a lot for me to take on. I'm a jump in and figure it out as I go gal. And so it was a lot. It was a lot, honestly, to take on, but I'm so glad I did it at this point, because now I'm just online. So I have a really, really active VIP group on Facebook, which I love it because I feel like I've been able to develop that community, and that's what I wanted there, and also on Instagram. So that's where we're at now.
Well, I love that you were able to, Anna is also a graduate of our master course, and we kind of helped narrow down her super skill and where we felt she was really skilled, and it involves your joy, your compulsion, and your skill set. And a couple of the words that always come up for Anna when we write things down is developing. And we're still fleshing out a little bit, because a super skill takes a little bit to develop, and it can change slightly over time. But what I had narrowed down, Anna, after praying about this for the last week before we pre-recorded, is that I really feel like, after following your Instagram stories and my notes from our class, is that Anna allows people, or women in particular, to enjoy their uniqueness by developing their sense of self.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna let you swallow that, and then I'll email it to you later too.
Yes, please do. I was gonna say, I'm gonna write that down.
The word uniqueness comes up very frequently in the way that you set up your shop was a whole experience on its own when you had the brick and mortar. And you got the sense of, wow, someone has curated every piece that sits there. There's nothing not that things weren't out of place, but they all went together and they harmonized beautifully together. So I knew that was part of it. And the fact that Anna was still raising so many little ones and desiring to have more little ones spoke also to, it's not necessarily a huge group of people and serving 30 people inside her store. It was more about the one-on-one interaction and building a woman and reminding her that she's unique and a creation of God, and developing her sense of self to just own it. Because here was Anna in small town South Dakota, owning it, being exactly who she wanted to be. So I think that's part of your uniqueness that you can offer to others and that you help develop in them. I just had to go off on my tangent about why she's amazing and why I think it's interesting that your journey then changed from the brick and mortar, which can drain anybody, by the way.
Yes.
And some are meant for it, because I've had a lot of course members, like Crystal with the Paisley Pod, meant for it, meant for brick and mortar, for the women to just come in there and hound her with all kinds of demands, and she thrives. That is her zone of genius. I, in the introvert in me, would like wither. I'd be like, whoa. Right. So that being said, what kind of led you from getting away from the brick and mortar and starting to recognize, wait, I don't know that I want to keep this up? You mentioned, the inventory piece alone is difficult to keep up with what's selling in the store compared to what's selling online. What other pieces of the puzzle made you go, I've got to change my model?
Yeah, honestly, Rebecca and I talked about this too a little bit, but I think I was being stubborn. I don't know that I honestly would have pulled out of the store had I not had the stroke. So it was in the back of my mind, but I don't know why I was holding on so tightly to it. I think because, honestly, it was a stable piece of finances for me. Sure. And that was a big thing, if I had a bad day on the website, I could always count on the store doing good. Yeah. And so it was a stable financial grasp for me to hold on to. And so I think that was a little bit nerve-wracking for me. I don't even like to say that because I don't feel like I get nervous about things very often, but that was, I think, a little bit of a piece of me being so stubborn about holding on to the store. And two, I didn't want people to think that I didn't want to have that interaction with them, because I love people. Yes. I really do. It's just the one-on-one more so that I like, because I like to deeply get to know people. I don't like to just have this, you're coming into the store, you don't really know me. I just love to deeply get to know people. Yep. But I was finding the store where it was like, yes, I have to unwrap all of these boxes. I have to transfer inventory from my house to there. I was having pop-up shops. It was just a lot of irons in the fire. And I felt like I was spreading myself so thin, and I wasn't able to focus on what I was really good at. So then I had a mini stroke is what they call it. Stress-induced is what we ruled it as. And I, at that point, was like, there was no stopping me of getting out of the store. I had to. And honestly, I had started youth group at our church. And what surprised me the most was everybody was telling me to stop youth group and to not stop the store. And I just had to pause for a second with my husband and just say, no, like, this is the devil telling everybody to tell me to take youth group off the list, because no, that's not what I needed to take off the list. It was the storefront. Mm-hmm. It was the brick and mortar that I felt like I needed to just get rid of and just curate that online. So that is how that kind of all started. Just to be online.
So there's so many takeaways here is that we can all appreciate that and I don't even like to use the word model because it seems so cold, but we pick a way that we're going to generate the income, right? We're like, okay, let's try Instagram. Let's try Facebook. Let's better have a website at one point, and let's try brick and mortar. So we have all the, we're going to try all these things. And then we start realizing which one is a better flow of income, or maybe two avenues. Like you said, well, one was great if the other one wasn't keeping up. And then your body, quite physically with all the children in your brain was like, wait, this is a lot to take in. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be your admittance, if that is the word, of a stroke and anxiety attacks, which in our pre-interview, we talked about this. So we can talk about this in a little detail too, I feel like is the only way it would happen to me too, because I am so driven as well as an Enneagram 3 that quite literally when you told us in the master course you had a stroke, I went, okay, God, I got it. Thank you. I'm sorry it was delivered to Anna first, but I got it. I'm glad she was strong enough to take it because it would have been me. It's just that we do all the things. And I got to that point, thankfully, mine was not in the form of an anxiety attack or stroke, but I was in the fetal position with my 18-month and I only had one. And that's what spurred the book and my podcast, was having this moment of, I can't possibly do family and business well if I don't create some systems around it. So that's how my journey happened as well. But it was so relatable with the stroke, and for all of the classmates to hear Anna talk about anxiety attacks and stroke, and for all of us to go, okay, this is real. She is exactly who I am. Not exactly, but she's living the life. She's having a family. This can happen to me if I'm not set for it. So also, if I do say so, I'm proud of you for going, okay, God, like you got my attention. I'm listening. And to rip away a part of the model that was really working was the boutique, and to go, I'm going to go online. So just briefly, Anna, because I think it would be important for our listeners to just hear different versions of it. Can you tell us some of the buildup to the anxiety attacks and what it looked like for you, knowing full well they're all individual events, they can happen differently, but just so we have an idea?
Yeah. So my first one, I guess I should say my first few, because it was right after we had our third baby, our daughter. I couldn't sleep. I wasn't able to breathe. So that was like more of your typical anxiety attack. And I just was really struggling. Well, I went to a counselor that my doctor had told me to go to. I just went to one session, but just kind of talked through some things that would maybe help me shortly after I had Violet. And she looked at me and she was like, honey, it takes 2 years for your hormones as a woman to level out after you have a baby. And that was a big thing for me. I was like, okay, I've had 3 in 3.5 years. Like it has not been able to level out. And I just wasn't feeling like myself even after our second, really. I've always been a really laid back, go with the flow type of person, which I still was, but it was more so I had to really make myself be that way because I just, I just wasn't mentally, I just wasn't feeling that. So anyway, those are the first few. I kind of just brushed it under the rug, and my husband was like, I think you need to go talk to our doctor. We need to really need to go talk to her. And I was completely against medication. I just wanted to really work through this, pray through it. I didn't feel like that's where I needed to go. So I had a couple more anxiety attacks. These weren't more so like I couldn't breathe. They were just like you said, the fetal position. literally I was in the fetal position, like couldn't make any decisions on my own. Just, I wasn't even crying. I was almost just mad. Like I was just mad that I was feeling this way, mad that I was, I don't
Pull your
know.
bootstraps on and get out of it or whatever.
Yes, exactly. So that is the two that happened. And then I would say, honestly, it was probably a month later, I was driving. I blacked out and got completely like sweaty at a stoplight, and my body was telling me to go. And I knew in my head that it was red, and it was the weirdest thing ever. So I pulled into a parking lot as close as I could get. And that's when I lost like all of my left side feeling. I called a friend because my husband wasn't able to answer the phone at the time. And she literally told me on the phone, she's like, you need to call 911 or get somebody to help you to the hospital because you're having a stroke, because I couldn't talk. I was starting to, like, my speech really got super delayed and stuff like that. So needless to say, we got to the hospital, and I remember sitting there, laying there, and the stroke team was by me, and they were trying to figure out, if I needed to go into surgery or not. But luckily they're called transversial strokes or something like that. They're just mini strokes, basically, usually stress induced. So most of the time they just, resolve themselves. Like you just see like a little blip on a CAT scan. So needless to say, I haven't had one since. We've been good.
Well, that's not needless to say. So you haven't experienced one since?
No, I have not.
And had a baby since, because you have a
And I've had a baby since. Yes.
And if you don't mind me asking, Anna, is it continued counseling and medication, or how have you kept it at bay?
Honestly, the medication, they have me on like just a really low dose, but it's been enough just to level back to where, or ground me, I like to say, back to where I was.
Okay.
And my doctor was just make sure you have somebody who's listening. And honestly, it was my husband who kept being like, this isn't you. I know who you are. We've been married for 9 years. Like, this is not you. And I remember when I sat in there, and I wasn't, because I had gotten pregnant then shortly. It would have been 2 months after my stroke. So no, I wasn't pregnant when I had the stroke, because that was everybody's question. They're like, well, you were just pregnant. That's why you probably had it. I was like, no, actually, it was shortly after I had the stroke, which I went into a whirlwind of like, I'm pregnant now. Like, how am I going to deal with this? And it was a really, really tough for me. It honestly was, just knowing like what my body is going to go through mentally, what I was going to go through. And at that point I was like, I need to get on some medication, because I was depressed. I was really, really down. And, my doctor looked at me and she's like, I had a gal come in here, and she was in her 40s. And she told me at her follow-up appointment, after being on some anxiety medication, that she finally felt like herself again. And she's so sad she didn't get on it when her kids were growing up, because she felt like she missed out on everything. And that's really what was like, I need to just give this a chance. My doctor's very confident in it. It's not going to hurt me long term, different things like that. And I'm so glad I did, honestly. So glad I did.
Well, I'm so grateful that you're sharing it, because, we hear that the stats of depression and anxiety meds are at an all-time high and blah, blah, blah. So you're like, well, I'm going to be the one that does it, right?
Exactly.
I don't need that. I'm going to pray it away. I got people, all of the things. So I'm so grateful that you could share, like, oh, you guys, like, yes. Whatever it is, responsibly, talk to counselors. I always a huge proponent of therapy, all forms, like you name it. I've probably experienced that sort of therapy. So yes, thank you so much for sharing all of the things.
Yes.
The event of the stroke, the anxiety attacks, then the stroke makes you go, okay. And your husband, I'm sure, is like, no more brick and mortar. We can, no more. But you still had this feeling that you still wanted to serve people well, and you still loved the clothing world. I also remember you having a conversation briefly. I don't know if it was during our course or on email together, saying, I just don't know if buying clothes is telling people, I'm trying to think of your words because I don't want to fill them in, but that just buying clothes is too materialistic for what I want to offer them.
Mm-hmm.
How did you work through that to continue?
Yes. Well, you helped me with that a little bit. I was just really, as you can imagine, just experiencing the stroke, getting out of the boutique. I felt very, very terrible for like 3 months, just health wise. Okay. I did not feel good. I mean, going live was just terrible. Like I just felt terrible and I didn't want to go live. And I just felt like I just wasn't meant to do this. You know, I just felt like everything was pointing to the direction of not. And so I was just really spinning, honestly, just trying to figure out, well, I love being able to reach women and I love being able to encourage them. And I get to do that through the boutique. But I never wanted it to just be about clothes. I just didn't want women to feel like I was trying to sell them something, or if they didn't buy from me, they weren't welcome there, you know, or that I wasn't thankful for them being there. So you just you helped me just realize, which I knew in my head that it was a great platform for me to reach women, but you just helped me be like, no, like you are able to still be an encouragement to women and do it in the way of the boutique platform. So I was encouraged by that. And I feel like I have definitely honed in on that more so, where it's, yeah, I love to style, but I love to get to know women and I don't know, just find their purpose, or maybe just encourage them where they're at in their life of mothering or stress or what have you.
Oftentimes, and thank you for saying I had something to do with it, but a lot of it was your environment, because you've attracted a lot of awesome advisors in your life, and I know you seek them out, and they all had something to say about, no. You could tell by the way when you go live and when you're on Instagram and Facebook for that matter too, is that you are more than just the clothes. It's the woman behind the clothes. And what we discovered with your super skills, that you develop the uniqueness in women. Whether you would have picked jewelry or clothes or a couch, you still would have somehow been able to develop the uniqueness in women. That's just what you are put on this earth to do. And you've been able to do that through the tool you're currently using as clothes.
Yes.
I have no doubt whatever direction, whatever model you choose to do, that will still be part of your ordeal. I want to talk a little bit about how amazing it is to keep incorporating faith into your Instagram stories when you go live and you just talk about like, man, you guys, at this moment, how important is it to you that you keep mentioning your faith?
It's super important. It's my number one, honestly. And at first, I guess I never really was nervous or scared to offend anybody. I think people really just take me as I am and appreciate that. And it's something I've prayed over often, you know, and before I say something, I want to make sure that it is something that God is telling me to post or to write or what have you. Yeah, it's my number one.
Well, I think it also differentiates you from, I mean, everybody, I would like to think, if you're listening, if you're on Instagram or on Facebook, you can smell a rat from a mile away from the clothing places where it's the same model in the same position and it's copy and pasted a different top on. And you're like, yeah, right. No. Compared to any of our awesome, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but in South Dakota, we have some of the largest boutiques in the nation. Did you guys all know that? Yeah, like South Dakota. And you know why it is? Because we're Midwest and we're like abnormally friendly and giving, full of faith, and people can read authenticity from a mile away. And so I think that plays a part in it. But when I love the way, when I've gotten to know these different boutique owners through the coaching, it's like how each one uniquely portrays how they want to build the woman. And so part of the faith journey for you is that too, is like, let me offer you some hope and let me offer you what Christ has done for me. And it's quite amazing. Like this is so funny and this is a little embarrassing, but when Anna's got a story up there, I'm like, oh, sit down. And I like get all comfy and I'm like, okay, what is she going to tell me today? And you know how I work. I'm like, I work real hard and real fast. I don't pause for anything, but I know that yours is spirit led, and it's a treat for me to sit down and go, okay, oh, that's good. So
thank you. You're so sweet.
Encouragers, listen, we have got time. In January, we start up our next course. I believe at this moment, we have 2, possibly 3 spots available. Now, if you are feeling chaotic after the year we just had, which is totally normal, by the way, and if you're feeling like your systems are completely out of whack, everything is broken, I want to help rebuild you. And we can do that if you take the course in January. I get to know you and your classmates one-on-one. We can offer you hope, encouragement, but more importantly, just the practical way to get it done. And then you also walk away with your super skill, which we will help develop through the whole 6 months so that you can walk away with one sentence that you know will be your moneymaker, it will be your accelerator, and it'll be your compass. So sign up to take the course on the website, theencouragerpodcast.com, and become a course member starting in January. I cannot wait to meet you. Anna, I would like to know, how do you go about curating the different pieces as the buyer for your audience? Like, is it only things that you love? Is it things that you think are especially unique? Is it you're serving your audience? How do you go about the buying process for the White Poppy?
So I just like to keep the boutique name at the end of the White Poppy just by bringing in limited amounts of things.
Sure.
So I just want it to be unique. Now, obviously, other boutiques around the world, around the US, can buy that item, but I, keep my blinders on. I'm not looking at other boutiques often.
Okay.
It's not that I don't, want to follow them, but I just want to keep my blinders on and make sure that I am in love with the product. 100%. So when it comes to buying, I'm not necessarily thinking completely of the consumer. I'm thinking of, how can I style this? How can it be worn different ways? How can the pieces all go together? And so honestly, I feel like the buying process for me, it takes a lot of time.
Yes.
It's a lot of combing through things. I definitely have designers that I go to, and I can just pull up their website and be like, yep, I can get 10 things easily out of here. But I a lot of times ask on my Instagram or on my VIP Facebook page, hey, do you guys like this? If I'm kind of on the fence, but I really do try to stick to obviously having those awesome basics in for the crazy mom life, and then very boho style.
Yes.
I say boho, but I mean, I feel like it's like a country girl went boho.
Okay. That also came up frequently too, as one of your strengths and your skill sets with the Venn diagram of the super skill is styling. Like, it's the compulsion part of you too. You can't just have a gray heather sweatshirt with a pocket. You're like, wait, just give me a second. And then you pull all the pieces together to make it better. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yes.
I love it. I'm laughing because the compulsion part of the super skill that you'll learn about, if you're also a member on our page in the master course, is the embarrassing one that you don't want to admit to others how compulsive, like you cannot not do it. And during staff meetings for my business, for Becca Scott Designs, if we mention a limited collection coming up or what we're talking about, and someone during the meeting will say, Becca, I know you had thought about this fabric at one time. The next 15 minutes are lost for me because I'm like, quick, I'm leading the meeting and I am seriously Googling. They can't tell it, but I'm already Googling the matching zipper and the lining. And I'm thinking about the sticker that will go on the shipping package. Like, boom, squirrel, compulsion, God. Yeah. So I love learning. I love learning from the listeners, and also anybody who takes the course, what their compulsion is, because their face lights up or they get embarrassed. And they're like, oh, I can't even tell you how kooky this is. It's so fun. I love it. Okay. So how do you see yourself moving forward, Anna? So do you still have the 4, you're feeling better health-wise?
Yes.
Yeah. The model, which we try not to even use that word, but the way that you have your business running is working. Your Instagram works, your website works. How do you picture yourself moving forward in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I honestly just feel like my growth has been really slow and steady. My Instagram, when you look at it, I don't have 10,000 followers. And I'm okay with that. It's a really strong group of followers. I'm not just trying to get anybody to follow me. I want people who really do want to follow the White Poppy Boutique, who are here for a reason. And so that's one thing we'll do the encouraging thing at the end, but I just want to encourage you that it's okay not to have, numbers aren't everything when it comes to followers. It just really is your business, you know?
It's not my line, but a gentleman said, would you rather have customers a mile wide or a mile deep?
Right.
And I think as women, we choose the deep one every time. Like, I don't need 15,000 to equal my worth. But if I had 1,500 that knew me and giggled about the same things and that I could really serve them well, I'll take that one every time.
Amen to that.
Absolutely. Anna, how would you like to encourage our listeners as we close in here?
So one thing that has been hard for me is to follow somebody who is a business woman who has 4 kids under 4.5. I feel like I've always looked for somebody who has the exact same thing so they can be like, hey, this is how you do it. Step by step, you can do it. It's fine. But I finally have figured out that no secret formula is there, friends. So you just have to figure it out and give yourself such an amazing amount of grace, which I think you said at the beginning, which is funny because I had that word wrote down. So just an amazing amount of grace, and just your balance is going to change. Your business model might change, especially with a new baby, especially when you have kids at home. Be flexible, be graceful to yourself, and just have fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna, for joining us on the podcast today. Until next time, encouragers, we got this. I know how you can start executing on all the things that God has equipped you to do. You can pick up my book at theencouragerpodcast.com and check out the store complete with book, journal, and the master course. Also, make sure to check out the resources tab where you'll get a hold of all the PDFs from the podcast. Thank you for tuning in, encouragers. Remember to subscribe so it's automatically on your phone. And please rate and review me. We got this, encouragers.